Wholeness and balanced vibration to everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Universal Current Show, Episode 8. I'm your host, Sevan Bomar III. Everyone knows me as Sevan. And today is just going to be an amazing show. Today's show, of course, is titled The Key to Both Worlds. And I'm going to be bringing this show to you today live on live stream. Which we are actually working on. Well, actually, I'm working on getting it up, and it seems to have just a little bit of bug with it, so we're just going to give that a moment. And we're just going to talk a little bit about the tune of today's show. Basically, since we started the Universal Current series, there's been a phenomenal amount of clarity that's been brought forth through this show and the information that I've been receiving since I made that intention to give everyone as much information as possible to allow them to be able to operate their astral vehicle. Also, before I kind of get started here, I'm going to ask someone in the chat room if they could send me a message back and let me know that they're hearing me loud and clear, because I do have some software that's kind of hanging up, but I believe that the sound should be clear. So I'm just going to wait for someone to type in that chat box on Blog Talk Radio that I can hear you clearly, and we're going to keep going with this. Okay, great. So, this is going to be amazing, because what this show is really about is basically we compress as much clarity as we can into each show, for the point that if any person is actually listening to one show for the first time, that they can get everything they need to know out of that one show if they're ready. And that's the whole nature to what we're actually doing is that this knowledge that we're bringing now has always been kept within a tight group of individuals since what we're calling the beginning. If we say 6,000 years ago, let's say something like the story of Genesis starts, and at that point, the people who were in charge of the knowledge and the beings that were in charge with the knowledge all remained a small sector to the rest of what was going on in what I'll now call the garden. Because once you understand that everything that's taking place in this universe is more related to what you would see in a garden, farming and fruits and crops and thorns and thistles and animals and all of this, that is the universe. And I'm going to show that in so many ways today. But it's important to get a hold of this terminology and to allow it to sink into your mind so that it can put things in order so that you can get ready to progress into the next state of your consciousness. Because you have to realize that the state that most people are actually in is more like what the chicken feels like right before it's about to come out of the egg. You can imagine the chicken doesn't know what's really going on and what's holding it back and what is that field that seems to be blocking it from opening up the rest of what it is. But the reality is that if you are prepared to hatch, then it comes at a perfect time. And that time for many, especially the people on this line, is now. And it's been happening, and I'm only doing the best that I can to accelerate that and to bring more clarity to what you're experiencing based on my real-time experiences in the pursuit of spirituality, esoteric knowledge, and everything that encompasses. We're on level 2 now, so you can literally visualize what our ships have done is we've activated our dynamos and our generators, and we are slightly hovering off the ground. We haven't taken off, but in an anti-gravity vehicle, immediately a space comes in between the ground and the vehicle. And that space is very similar to what you feel when you put two opposite poles of a magnet together. That's what our ships are doing right now, and we are hovering, and that's the pace of level 2. And some of the information coming across today, I'm just sitting back like amazed about what level 7 is going to be about, because we will get to that point. So the two worlds that we want to discuss today are the internal and external world. And it looks like our live stream is actually working over here. So if you want to tune in to the live stream, it's www.livestream.com/understanding. I'm going to go ahead and slide this over here. Awesome. Okay, so these two worlds that we're talking about are the internal and external world. And despite, some people are extremely external and they just want to really run into the external world. And then some people are really internal and they just want to run away from the internal world. And the fact is here is you're going to have to do both. A heart beats. It doesn't, the breath go in and out. So the key here is to learn how to do this, to pass through both worlds, in and out, with really no ripples. It's easy. You don't make a lot of commotion and unbalance, etc., because of how sleek your vehicle is. And I posted the Monica Shastras because I began to discover when reading it over again that they weren't talking about physical vehicles. Now, because the people who are interpreting the book into English have already assumed that they're talking about UFOs and how to build UFOs, etc., they twist our English language to fit more of that text. But in many cases, if you sit and read what's going on and imagine you're reading about an astral body and how to operate your astral body, as it's saying every pilot needs to have a manual on how to operate their vehicle before they can get in the vehicle. They don't give you keys to the actual vehicle unless you understand how to operate it. And it even talks about things in there to the end of how to activate without allowing others to know and other beings knowing that you're activated. This becomes very interesting because there's so much that we don't know about in regards to the astral plane, but we do have many guides that are willing to show us what's there. But we see a lot of parallels in our world that are very similar to what's being introduced. And the reality is that what place does the activated human have on Earth? This is the question that I asked myself 3 days ago after multiple levels of energy surges and charges and information and things of that nature. And I began to understand that if this was not done properly, then the activated human could be even abused by organizations such as the military and things of that nature, or people who only have the interest, third party, only have the interest in utilizing activated abilities to further their reaping of thorns and thistles and stupidity for themselves, and using you as a tool to do something of that nature. And when that question came up, this is also where it revealed in the Shastras about basically a code where you're actually activated, but other beings cannot tell that you're activated. So just check out the book, see what you really can get out of it, and I believe I'm more than sure that you'll see that there's a lot of information in there that you would need to know when you're talking about something of this nature. And that's why level 2 is only a depth level at this point. It's really, that's what level 1 was about. It's about getting the people that are off the ship, basically, that don't really want to be there for whatever reason because it's just not their time. Level 2, the ship's already off the ground. Of course, some people will just jump here a moment and I'm getting off of here. And some people will be like, I'm getting on, and then jump and catch a hand. And so that's really the tune also of how we're bringing this information, because it's a depth knowledge. Most people are used to dealing with the Christian mentality, and because of that, even discussions on the sexual or orgasmic nature of that context brings out all sorts of stigmas within them, or maybe a stigmata, but it literally brings up a bad connection, and that, of course, is a short circuit within our mind. So that is where the gate is blocked for many of the religious people, because remember, religions are just what you hate. So you get a lifetime of practicing that hatred just to wean it out of your system. And as Willem was talking about, your ego will have a good way of manifesting the exact opposite of what you were the last life, just so you can't really remember what you were, because it's just so foreign to what you were before. So how to stop playing these kind of games in a huge universe that is full of all kinds of beings, many of them endowed with sentience, and a intellect operating outside of instinct. Remember, instinct is like your firmware. It's the basic survival stuff. But beyond that, that's where you get these extra abilities. You get having no boundaries as your city or what you've earned or obtained through the toiling of what you worked for in this garden of yours. And I'll explain it to you how this whole thing was put together really fast so you'll understand what the higher beings, but basically our parents, really expect from us as seeds of theirs. Now remember, all seeds don't grow in the trees. Some of them fall on barren ground, some of them sprout up but don't have deep enough roots, and then they are washed away. Only the ones who ground themselves within the roots and their past, their culture, etc., and then spring forth from there. Because what happens is here is what, just like your mother and father in this world, what they expect from you before the system got thrown off. Notice we are dealing with this now when it's thrown off, when we have to reobtain the balance in it. But how the mother and father were expecting things to happen is that when they have the child works, and of course there's a preparation for the child. Let's just talk about the preparation first. I think I'm doing the cart before the horse. The preparation is the man is to make sure that when he puts forth his seed, that it goes on fertile ground. Fertile ground has minerals. This means that the woman should know about crystals and things of that nature and should have been culturized, basically, so that she produces fertile ground. And then the woman, in turn, has to make sure that she is getting a strong seed, not a viral seed, not a Monsanto seed, not any kind of seed, but an actual fertile seed. So that is the responsibility. And so then once this child comes out, because all the work has been done, then it comes out and it brings fruit. And how it brings fruit is the child may be intelligent, gifted, activated, etc. It goes out into the world and it starts to produce large amounts of things. Then it brings back that to its parents. And so basically the parents are reaping what they sowed, because when the mother is carrying the child, she's toiling with this child. He's heavy, or she's heavy. And then the father, who's, of course, working and taking care of the family, he's working and toiling. So all of it is about toiling to when the fruit is produced that you can eat all the fruit. Not in a way like they're going to swallow us and kill us and all of what our fears because of our darkness of ignorance have caused us to believe, but because that's how it's supposed to work. And then in turn, we have children do the same thing as far as make sure that the child is brought in the world properly, because the child will be grateful for this, and then it produces. So you can see this is like the real pay it forward, for a better lack of word. And that's how the universe began. And what we mark, and which is, the Earth is 4 billion years old, we're talking about a long time ago. Over time, many things have happened. I'm going to show you today about some of the things that took place. The first thing that I want you to understand is that if you look at this, I just did this morning. It came to me about a week and a half ago, but it was showing me how to basically turn the English language back into the glyph that they come from, in order to read it a different kind of way. Since I started to do that, oh my goodness, there will be no end to Sevan's knowledge. I really believe that it'll be more something else that takes place on the dimension, the complete activation of the dimension, that will stop what I have to bring forth. It won't stop until the activation is complete. So that's just what's going on. It's beyond me at this point. What you see here is you see the glyph of the 13, and you can read the post on the resistance. It's called number 13 means hidden, but I will explain it here since it's up on the screen. So the number 1, of course, is a straight line, and the number 3 is a triangle. It always has been. So a straight line and a triangle, if you saw those two tools and you were from, let's say, Rigel, Aldebaran, Orion, or any other system, you know it meant you would put it together like this, because this is a very familiar symbol. And what I'm talking about, for those who are tuning in on live stream, they will see there's a pyramid with flash, with the same thing as what we get on the dollar bill, which is the pyramid with the eye on top, and it means hidden. So all of what you see with the number 13 is what is out of view for the normal person on this planet. And this is what you get the know-it-all, because the know-it-alls think they know everything. But do they know why there's no 13th floor in most buildings? Why there's no 13th owl on most airplanes? Why there's no 13th size font, Microsoft Word? And as Den's brought up, why there's no size 13 in clothing most of the time? And why Jesus and his disciple is 12 disciples and then Jesus, which makes 13, meaning 12 ruling, one ruling over 12. Why the Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer, is the 13th side of the zodiac, has remained hidden, and for most, to about a year ago since they released it on the news, most people knew about it, but of course astrologers and things already understood the 13th sign. It does come from the basis that there are really only three numbers, 1, 2, and 3. 0 is not a number, it's no thing. It's through the portal, everything outside of the construct. So what happens is that this number 13 is lacking the number 2, which, and the 2 stands for duality. The 2 stands for die. Remember, die means 2. So because 13 has no 2 in it, it means it doesn't die, for better lack of words. It means it is immortal. And that is the secret to the number 13, is a symbol of immortality and lacking death. So it's automatically a correct assumption to assume the individuals who begin to build pyramid-like structures were coming from a system where they already had obtained the knowledge of how to escape death. That became known as the serpent's knowledge. And that's why there's a big conflict within the Old Testament about whether the serpent helped man and woman or whether it hurt man and woman. At this point, we should just look at where we're at right now. The information that was given in that garden, for better lack of words, the information about the pentagram. And that is why the fruit that was used, symbolism, is the apple, because the apple contains the pentagram when you slice it in half. And now we get into the meat of what today's show is about, is that I'm going to show beyond the shadow of a doubt that the female is the pentagram and the male is the hexagram. And that was known so long ago, it makes us all really look silly that we weren't told this. It almost, at this point, when I finish showing all of what I have, you're going to know that there is obviously something far more vast and intelligent. We are watching over this whole thing. And the whole idea here is for you to progress, to go as far as you can, basically make the universe proud. But everything else is just an obstacle or something to test you to see if you will stay where you are and stop going, etc. How this works is that the pentagram itself is, we covered 72 times 5, which is 360 degrees, or what they call a circle. We've mapped out that the planet Venus traces this pattern that you see on Livestream. For those that are just tuning in, it's www.livestream.com/innerstanding. You can go and see the visual of what I'm presenting here. But basically, this symbol of the pentagram has showed up all throughout the history of mankind. And the reason is because it is the symbol of bringing things into the external world, bringing things that are normally internal or are in the internal stance and birthing them into an external world. So how this works is that the pentagram itself was connected in history to Inanna, who carries the 5-pointed star, Isis, who carries the 5-pointed star on top of her head, Sirius, the dog star, which carries the 5-pointed star in its eye, Venus, of course. And this is because when you look at the planet and you ask, well, how did we get here? You should logically and critically go step by step and say, okay, we came through our mother. So this means that if a human can come out of another human, then that is what we call a fractal. So we found out that 5 is everything about fractals. In fact, it's called the rabbit hole. And the reason why the term rabbit, which is really an Arabic word, it means the life of rock, for those who were looking for where the etymology of that comes from, because they knew that the sun's solar rays are penetrating the planet like seeds all the time. Because the sun is responsible for gathering all of the souls. That's why it pulls energy for most of the day. And then what it does is, in turn, it emanates back out that energy. And men do that too, because we eat food and we pull in all of that energy, and then we produce these semen that are like their seeds also, and then we can push them back out into, just like the planet is a womb, and they will grow again. So that is the basis of what you're looking at when you understand the nature of this planet. And so the reason what the pentagram does is, because woman is responsible for bringing the child into an external world, this makes her the pentagram, even from the sense that because she carries the womb, that splits the atom. And the atom is more related to the hexagram. It is actually the hexagram field. And so when the hexagram field goes into the pentagram, it fractalizes it, or it divides it, and this brings out the child, which is basically a condensed version of the sun. You see what I mean? Like, it brings out the condensed version, or the baby version of the higher beings. And that's why the gate was called Babylon, which we talked about means baby, Bab or Ba, which is the name of the spirit, On, which means the nighttime, because we understand that if you remove the sun from the earth, it's naturally dark. And this is why you know also the earth is a pentagram, it is female, it is a dodecahedron, it is a womb, it is dark, it is wet, it is moist. The sun is arid, dry. See what I mean? So all of the symbolism is here. And this is what drives me nuts these days, because no one is still talking about this. It's so simple to see. Now we're going to walk through history, because what was going on is that we are now under the 5 ratio, for better lack of words. But the other worlds, and when the world was being used by other beings, because remember, the world is 4 billion years old, and you live 72 years. So, on an average. So, the other beings are on other geometry. The same geometry that you see in the eyes of animals. So, that geometry actually constructs their body. So, when you have a being like this, it looks very different to a human. It's like, oh my goodness, run! But the one who has the knowledge would move your cranium and start doing mathematics on the face, and then figure out, oh, this is hexagon being, and they reside on this frequency. And what you were looking at when the wars took place was the frequencies kind of collided. They call that 0 point. It happens all the time. It's basically when the gates open, and then all the beings launch basically what looks like a war, but they're trying to cross into other dimensions. And this is what appears to be not only taking place now, but going to be happening on a grander level in 2012. But the reason why I really brought up these pictures is not only to get people to understand that there were other kind of beings that were living here, but also to get people to understand that they were sentient, and that there was a huge war that took place before we got here that has been removed from our memory. Because the memory resides on the frequency. So if you're not on the frequency of where it took place at in time, then it's obscure to you. You cannot see it. And that's what the power of what I call now the lattice. Don't even call it a flower of life, but it is the design that I just recently showed all the resistance on that post, which, someone could just ask me about it. I'm sure they know what I'm talking about. It's not in here. But the lattice work design, which is the thin level of the flower of life, when used properly, one can visualize scenes in stasis, meaning they can see the archetype time segments in the past and basically extract energy, essence, and moment, the whole moment, from that memory. And gain the knowledge or whatever is to be gained from that moment. And that's how beings, that Time Lords is the only title we really have for them, go in and out of time, because they use the lattice work to go into these stasis fields. Because the only thing when there's no time is nothing's moving. It's immortal. And that's why they say, oh, God's never changing, because God's in stasis. Ideas that remain what they are forever are basically like frozen in time. And if you want to gain everything that they have, you only have to turn the dial on your lattice work, which works really with your pineal gland, and you can access that moment. So it appears to me that the reason why humans were removed from this system is because of this. After a while, many different kinds of beings gain the knowledge of how to operate their vehicles. And thus they began to war with each other, and this began to throw the planet off balance. Now you notice there's a close-up here of one of the beings that was involved, but you see it's green. This is heavy symbolism of the melanation and the Naga. But you also see there's a white hand here too. So what it really was is, but all faces or the geometry was the same, is a certain group of beings with a certain kind of attitude that was very warlike. And here's what I will explain to you about. When the spirit comes first, when the seed comes out first from the sun, it is very potent. And that's why these were known as sun gods. But there were many of them, just as many of rays that come from the sun. And the first ones that came out were so potent, it was like someone on extreme AD. They would not stop. They could not stop. They always had to have something to do. And war became the way that they passed their time in competition. Because now they've come out, they were more than likely born through the planet itself, because people don't understand the sacred knowledge of this planet, which is that it is a female giant. And it has other female giants, and that is the secret to America. They have 50 Amazonian giants that they pulled out of the lore of the pre-Columbian knowledge. They were in pre-Columbia, or Columbia, the District of Columbia, Columbine, etc. They were in Columbia, which means a column or a pillar, but a female column. And that's where they learned the knowledge about the female giants that were already here on this planet, that the males from the sun went right into their wombs. Just like what you see with the Jesus story, that they didn't go into these women's womb from a sexual union first. They went in strictly as penetrating from their etheric level, because they didn't have physical bodies yet. And then when they were born from these mothers, Mother Russia, Mother Africa, etc., then that's when they began to come into this world. And this information is just profound, man. I just sit back, because it all makes sense. Like, I've read now 16,000 books, but more than that, I've seen the code from the sun itself. There's a photon code coming from the sun. I believe in my interaction with that, it explained all of this to me in another way. And I've just been unpacking these days, and it's just amazing. But I just kind of have to stop for a moment, because the level of knowledge is just getting, a little bit difficult for me to stay even cohesive on the line. But what you see here is that these two indigenous tribes, and again, anyone just tuning in, we're on live stream, www.livestream.com/understanding. You can see the visuals behind what I'm explaining. But what you have here is you have the tribe here, and these are the indigenous costumes that they're wearing. I'm sure these are new lightning bolts. But this dance that they've been doing since the beginning of time, since their tribe began to exist, and they don't even have a written language. And they are giving homage to the beings that came here first. And what you see in their hand is you see the lightning bolt, which is, of course, the rays from the sun, as they call Zeus, these beings who steal knowledge. Zeus calls himself the thunderer. So this is where that comes from, the sign of lightning. And then you see the horn, because the horn is known as the fertility component, and which hence the word. So the reality is that now you also see that these men were larger, because every time the Indigenous make the mask has to be very large to show the size of the beings and how big they were. But again, they become fractalized over time and divided, and that's why man is smaller in stature now, because he's gone through the fire rabbit hole a few times, more than a few times. Because this kind of nature, if you look at this mask, is from the Dogon tribe, of the ones from the Sirius star system and Orion, you can look right at this and absorb the energy and understand that these are very, very powerful men. And that they, over time, had to become diluted in order for them not to keep fighting. So the next question that I was going to ask today is, or probably the last question, but I'll ask it now so that people can just keep it in their mind. Domestication or preservation? You decide. Because if we take the domestic, which is definitely dualistic standpoint, then we're like, yes, they took away our powers, we were powerful, blah, blah, blah. Or was it that we kept beating the crap out of each other with all of our powers, and every time we developed something very prosperous, we tore it down in war, which is what you see over and over again in history. Every time, there's cities that were magnificent that you'll never see again because the next ruler burned it to the ground. Now, here's another thing. You have stones that, they say this stone in particular, they call it the mother stone. It's found in the Temple of Baalbek. Is basically 100 cars, as you see here, 100 cars compressed. That's how much it weighs. Do you think that the beings that were living then were using this kind of technology that we're using now to do this kind of stuff? No, they were using their mind, because not only did they have this kind of strong ability and height, it was accompanied by the spiritual power in which they gained from their, what you would say is a father, but is really an androgynon. So what you're looking at is that they utilize their mind and utilize the chakra center in order to do and construct all of the things that they began to have their lifestyle with doing. But over time, like I said, the drawback of phi is it splits you every time. So you die. Phi is everything to do with time. That's why it's a circle. It's really, they call it the golden circle. As you go around the circle, if you're going in one direction, you get stronger. If you go in another direction, you get weaker. That's the secret. So what happens and what controls your direction is how you operate your vehicle, of course. It's like, well, what's controlling our direction and where we're going? You didn't know? You've been steering this thing in the wrong direction, actually. You need to turn it around fast. That's what I'm here for. I'm here just to give you a message to, if you know that your vehicle is heading in the wrong direction, this is how you turn it around, so that you can get into the collective of what exactly has been going on. We're not discovering anything. It's already been going on. We are just coming out of our amnesia from being divided, because our last life was spent with us utilizing ability to basically push the political agendas and the different agendas of people who are clouded mentally, meaning that the blind has been leading the blind for the darkness of what they call the yuga, which is where the sun is losing its strength. So the connection that people have with the energy of their soul is less and less. Now, this happens all the time. That's why the Mayans mark this as the sixth sun. And if you really want to know where any of these other beings came from, especially the serpent ones, they came from Saturn. Because Saturn was the previous sun for this planet. All suns are Merkaba, and Saturn is definitely a Merkaba. You now still see the hexagon on its pole. So the reality is that that's also why there's a lot of strife and things within these inner circles, because when no one will point this out and clarify all this, there's a lot of confusion and a lot of wars. And I'll tell you why that's happening. look at this picture. Again, for those who are just tuning in, we are on live stream also, which is www.livestream.com/innerstanding. And I'm showing the images of different things so that you can get the visual on what I'm explaining, so you definitely don't have to take the word for it. If you notice here with this artifact, the faces of those who are raising the jet pillar have been etched out. This is what I call how something becomes hidden. Now, obviously, the faces are etched out, because notice in the whole painting, nothing else is etched out except for the black faces. And that is why things start getting hidden, is because when you hide someone's culture, which is a very important part of our whole history, then the rest of humanity does not benefit. It actually loses because it's missing its 13, better lack of word. It's missing a big part of the information, and that's why it's also been called the serpent of knowledge, because it's obvious that the people, the melanated people of this world, have a very close connection to the serpentine races. There it is there. So the reality becomes is how much more of the stupidity do we have to suffer without us knowing exactly what's happening here so that we know where to go. If you look, this is the Temple of Akhenaten, and this is the solar ray that's on the top. And as you see here, there is a serpent, because the serpent, or the soul, as it was called, the solution, as I talked about in the other post, answer comes from the word answer, ansara, which means a helpers in Arabic, or serpents. So our words for our answers and our solutions both equal the serpent and the sun. So it's almost like at this point, instead of us going in to figure out how we're going to actually interact with the serpent race, we should just understand the knowledge and keep moving, because there's more to it. Like it doesn't end or begin with serpents. But if you look, here's another picture. You see here, this is what they were noting. The jet pillar in itself is bringing forth what was known as electricity to the race then, that they had what we call electricity. And you would know this because the temples, you could not see. The temples were so big, you could not see in the temples if you didn't have, not with torches and lanterns. Are you kidding? Do you know how much it would take to keep torches and lanterns lit to basically keep an entire temple lit? Again, let's look at some of the live pictures here, some of the sizes of these temples. It's not going to happen. But the light that you see that the eels generate, the electricity, as you see L and eel, is the actual electricity that we're talking about. And that's why this whole topic, even for certain people, is like, oh my goodness, what are we saying? I get off the phone, maybe this is not what I thought it was, because this is where they end. This is where they're veiled. They don't know what the serpent is. They don't know that it's electric. And that's why it's called El, or Elohim. And that electricity, for better lack of words, has changed this world. It has. Take electricity away right now. You don't hear me. Like this is functioning. So this is how these worlds keep changing. And I'm just along for the ride. Obviously, I didn't put it together, or I would know everything about it. But I can definitely tell you that there are people in our biorhythm, beings in our biorhythm, that know about all this. And those who have the right, somehow can tap into the field and just get the knowledge, because it's almost like it's yours anyway. It belongs to you. If you know, here's a Bible for those Christians. This is an ancient Bible here. You see on the right this thing that looks like a flower. I bet you it is a flower. It's the Sephiroth, or the kingdoms, were all wombs. But notice they hide it. This is a Bible. It's talking just the same thing, just about what the modern Bible is talking about. But in certain pictures, they show these symbols that are related to the higher level of knowledge. But again, it's remained hidden. They told the people to stay away from it. But yet, every time you turn around, any major action within spirituality, whether it's Krishna with him hanging all around him, hooded cobra all over his back, Egyptian with serpent on the front of the crown, Jesus, Nehushtan, the brazen serpent, Moses, serpents on the ground in Egypt, Moses, serpents on the ground too. So it's like with the world you're dealing with, people just want to keep you in a state of delusion about what's happening based on fear that is unwarranted. Just as crazy as one hearing one of the beings that exist in the universe that they exist in. It's like there's no fear here. So we have boundaries. But I'll show you who's been making the boundaries. I'm looking for this particular picture for a long time. And I knew about it from a long time ago from viewing another book that belonged to someone else. And I was told that this book is kept in the Vatican. And this is, again, for those just tuning in, we're on live stream, www.livestream.com/understanding. We're showing the pictures before I slow it down, livestream.com/understanding. We're showing the pictures of what I'm talking about so that people can really leave the doubts here. But what the papacy was set up for in the mortal Charlemagne were the individuals that knew about the power that was coming from the sun. They know about what I'm telling you about right now. They know about the serpent. They know about electricity. They know about Leo Pentagram and the felines, the feminine nature, the fertilities, wombs, etc. They knew about all of this. Because the reality is that if I know about it, they know about it. And your local military knows about it too. They're not just getting this memo. They've just been keeping it from you. But when they started understanding how to develop other worlds based on geometry, projecting energy fields, people that can hold worlds, what they call architects, like in the Adjustment Bureau, you need a new architect. They're talking about an individual that has the unique ability of being able to encase an entire world within their mind. That's what I say, it's mental. So the reality is that this world that they are making people go to now by conviction, this is called the conviction of the Lord. When a person makes their agreement, because they make their agreements through these rituals that they do, these oaths, these pacts, births. First of all, you're born from the mother earth. Nothing can really receive that is here on earth. Because it would be stupid. Do you think that something that is greater than the planet exists on the planet? No, because something that is greater than the planet is larger than the planet. It's all about dimension, which means size. So the reality is anything that's on the mother saying it's more powerful than the mother is got to be out of their mind. Because she's the mother of all mass. And as long as we're in human bodies, she has what they call the sword, or the justice, or the S word, to be able to remove you from this dimension. That's why they say, the Dogons say, if you do anything really wrong by nature, trust me, it will come out and get you. But most people are doing exactly what they're expected to do, because it's all about your aptitude, how much you're willing to push yourself forward. So when you see the papacy, what they've done is they've erected an entire kingdom of demigods. And how it works is that basically every region on the earth is binded up. And the beings of how it ends up looking on an astral level, like if you can look at New York on an astral level, would be like some of the depictions that you see back here behind Apollonius and all the rest of the resonators. This is what's called when you are the God and you are the Son. That's the trick. They make it appear that Jesus is different in the Son of God, but in reality, where that mythology comes from, he is himself. And that's why you see Mary holding the baby, but if you look in the right devices, the baby is also her husband. Because the knowledge is that if a man comes back through the womb again, he's basically born out of his mother again. You just have to understand what you're really looking at. And this is why there's been a whole barrage of tearing down true sexuality, because it already explains all this. We could learn all this just from the sexual nature and reproductive nature of our existence. But when we're told to stay away from that, and that's what we talk about. So anyway, what you see here is on the flag, and I did have a little marker here, but I'm not going to miss this since it seems like it's working. On this flag that Apollonius is holding, and the Charlemagne and all the rest of the resonators, well, not even, I guess you can use the Chrysler and they call them, because remember, the symbol of Chrysler is the pentagram. So you'll understand that the Christ is really a feminine character. That's why when you see the passivity of the Christian religion, it's passive, it's not masculine, and we already know what the passive character is related to. But it's interesting that when you see this picture and you see Jesus coming out of the Visitor, and you notice the posture, and then he's wearing the red robe, which is the robe of the Virgin or the Red Queen, etc. It is now the act of a man taking the woman's role as the savior of the beings here on the planet. So that's how the papacy, which is related to Pa, or simply P, has turned everything around, because they know this knowledge about, let me explain to you really quickly about the hexagram, and this may blow your mind, but the reality is that they know that man has two heads, and I'll prove this to you, and woman has one, and that's why she's the pentagram. And then the feet of her are just like you see them with the pentagram. But man is a hexagram because he has another head that points down. And that's why the joke is that, well, don't let the other head or mine lead you. Now, if you think that I'm playing, spine is an anagram for the word penis. So I want people to just think about that for a while, think about why they didn't see that, and then we'll keep moving through this. So man had, like we were talking about that being that we kept seeing in some of the ancient pictures where there was like a man had another entity living in his stomach. This knowledge is already known. So as a sidebar, just to kind of, loosen things up a little bit, I sent this from PayPal the other week, and it's funny how whoever's putting this stuff out, they're overtly being told what to do. They're not like doing it on purpose. They say, oh, let me do it and just put this there and then, that's it. But they don't understand. Like this says here, for those that can't read it, let me enlarge it a little bit. It says hidden powers. And then the kid is here with a pentagram on his chest. And you should just watch as you let this knowledge sink in that I'm explaining to you now, how much of this stuff you start seeing pop up everywhere. Even from the point of, I was watching Purple Rain the other day because I realized that the color purple is related to the Phoenicians because they have this shell that produced purple dye, and that the word Phoenicia comes from the Greek word phoenix. And also all the relationship with the Phoenix and Lucifer and all that comes from the Phoenicians, who were seafaring people. So I was digging, they were mixed because they were original pirates. And notice you get the P here everywhere. So I was looking at this scene really briefly in Prince, and I don't know how intelligible it is, but basically it's Apollonia in her first scene, and she's got the red glove on, like somewhat similar to what Beyonce was wearing. But when the guy is leaving the place, who's the promoter, his shirt says Red Roost, literally showing that she is seeing the Red Queen, or Red Queen resonator, actually initiating Prince in the Phoenician purple queen. Just like we know that Obama initiated Obama basically into Deepak Chopra into the industry, and she is Wind Frey, which means one Frey. A Frey is a queen, so it means one queen. And so we know she's also a red dress resonator. So remember, this is now when you're out of duality and you're just trying to figure out, well, what's going on really? Like, since I've been asleep, what's really been happening? It's been going on. It's the same old thing, but I will explain to you a major part of the mission that we're here for, because while everyone else has been playing off in the pentagram world with flesh, there's some spiritual things that haven't been taken care of, and it's starting to cause a lag on everything. So it's almost like because the pentagram is related to pleasure, many of the beings that are here now are basically immersed completely in pleasure, never realizing that they need to kind of wake up and handle certain things that allow these dimensions to even be able to function. And it has a lot to do with the indigenous people and what we have to bring back to them. Because this is what the real word, the rainbow child or rainbow children really means. It means a being who has mixed culture. They have immersed themselves in different cultures, and they even be mixed by bloodline, and they are born in the new world, which is the United States, and they now have this new culture. And because they have their old culture, which is their roots, And then this new culture, now they become broader on the spectrum of what they know. And so because of that, these indigenous people are waiting on you to return. This is what the myth is. And you don't have to necessarily return physically, although some people will. But on a spiritual level, they are waiting to receive, for better lack of words, their next spiritual update. The indigenous people I've been around a lot of them, and the misconception is, from many of us, is that the indigenous people are more spiritually tapped in than we are. Not true. The indigenous people will be more spiritually advanced once they get the next level of spiritual knowledge that they're waiting for. And the reason why they're waiting for it is that any of these sun gods came to them and told them, hey, that we'll come back for you. This is one of the lying sun gods. I call them fake sun gods. We're going to come back for you, the Quetzalcoatl tradition. And we'll give you the knowledge of how to ascend into heaven with us, right? And where are these people now, these indigenous people? Where they are is doing this. And listen to what this gentleman says. And I'm not sure how the sound will come through, so I'll repeat it. Again, we're on live stream, which is www.livestream.com/understanding. I want to play a video here that shows that the indigenous people in the Inca, are still waiting on Tupac Amaru, which is the name of the sun god, because Tupac Shakur's mother knew the legend and chose to name him after the one who was to return to basically bring knowledge to these people about the rest of their ascension. But the reality is that there are many Christ and Messiah sun gods, resonators here on this planet. Pretty much many, just think about how many see come from the sun, and that's the only thing you need to be called the Son of God. So the reality is that there are many strong seeds, Christ resonators, that have come through this planet, but for some reason they get deterred on their mission, and they basically get up in the rabbit hole. So look at what this gentleman says. It says, as a member of Willie's team, Gato has gained a deep insight of his past, and he is waiting for Tupac because he needs a decent future for his kids. He says he's worried because he doesn't have what he needs. We don't have lights. It's been like this for many years. We've been waiting for this individual to return. I don't know what I'm doing, what's happening. And I'm trying to say it as they're saying it on this video. But again, the point here is that the indigenous are waiting for this knowledge that these people, this papacy, is holding from them. But they expect it to come back from them because they're the ones who brought them this cross and brought them this knowledge, which was really just to take their land. When they came through Tikal, you see on the Inca mummies, when they came through those territories, the first man they allowed to come through the territory, scoped the territory out, found all their weak points, and within three weeks later, the whole horizon was covered with ships, and the people got obliterated and all their gold taken. And then they were given a religion and told to just wait for someone to return. Now the people cry for the person to return. And that's the mystery of the knowledge of they say Tammuz, that they weep for Tammuz, meaning that they weep, your ancestors weep for you to come and bring them their knowledge so that they could ascend. So, as you see what the Nazca lines are about, because much of this took place in Peru, the pollination of our planet, is the Nazca lines are very similar to what you see here, which is called the Chinese satellite calibration. How satellites and things from space work is when it has to see the Earth, it has to see it in a certain way, and it gives it a lot of knowledge. So what the Nazca lines are really about is very similar to the same grid that the Chinese use to calibrate their satellites. Because from the external state of consciousness in the sky, that's where the beings that are what we call higher beings are residing. But in states That's why they don't do anything. People are like, oh, why don't they come down here? And that's not what they're made to do. That's like saying, why don't they get born again? What do you think you're doing? You keep coming back here to finish something so that you can go to your next level of geometry. I can tell you that probably all of this is what I'm telling you here probably won't apply in the next level that you hit in Ascension. But it is everything about what's going on here. Look at this again in Peru, where they show that when they were landing these crafts, which I believe contain much of the seeds, many of the different kinds of seeds that we see here, because there's more. Because remember, the pentagram is also related to the flower. So there is creativity that goes on with the womb itself. It's not just waiting to receive the seeds from the sun. And this is the most interesting thing. I now noted that most of what was going on this planet changed completely when the sun appeared. But before this, there were many other kinds of things that existed without the sun. And so there's somewhat of a conflict between those things that it can exist without the sun and those things that can that need the sun to exist. And so the solution for that was to split the dimension in half. And that's what we call night and day, where the ones that cannot live in the light have their half of the day to come out, and then the ones who cannot exist without light have their half of the day to receive light. Now, these things that I'm talking about are not like you and me, because we're the generation from the day and the nighttime being, because we can now exist in day and night. So again, we've blown so far past level 2. I'm going to check the coolers real quick and go ahead and get the ship readjusted so that we can really finish what I was talking about in the show. And let's see here what time we have on the clock. Someone said the live stream is showing an old show. What I know 100% is that the live stream is saving. And so you should be able to see this, you should be able to see it after the show is over. And of course, it'll be audio accompanying with it. In fact, let me just take a moment to adjust some settings, and I'm going to stop it and make sure that it's recording, etc. So we're going to take about 7 minutes, 8 minutes here for a break. And then we're going to be right back, and we're going to get into some more of this knowledge, man. I mean, this is just way beyond what anyone's talking about. But if they say I can't prove it, then that's not valid anymore. And also, when we come back, we're going to go ahead and take some calls. If you would like to call in, you can call in to area code 347-996-5688, and you can press 1, and then I will see the indicator, and I'll be able to take your call. So we're just going to take a minute, just take a break. I want to see this around with the live stream. I do apologize for it not broadcasting live, and we'll be back here in just a moment. And I'm going to go live on the live stream again. It appeared to be recording, so I guess it just didn't put it live, and I think now it'll be live. But we'll see what happens, because this thing is a little shaky. Hopefully what I'll be able to do, because I do have a really crispy recording, is I'll be able to take that recording and just put these pictures in with that recording and then put it up on YouTube, because I really like this show. It has a lot of consistency to it, because I'm utilizing different forms to express the knowledge. And it just helps, because I don't have time to waste people's time, and nor do I have time to my time wasted. But for some reason, since I made myself available, I've been getting a large amount of the truth of what's been taking place, and it's been showing in an astronomical way. So let me get into just a little bit of stuff that I really wanted to mention really briefly. Let's see here. The Master's Post video is up. I did get a chance to get that done. So if you go into the resistance and you look at the top left column on where the videos are, you'll notice the Master's Post video is right on top. And I just want to tell you, man, if I'm Morpheus, then you're Neo. I'm not. You're the one. Like, you have to make this happen for yourself. I'm moving into the zero plane. Like, I'm working with unknown. The one is first to lead duality. That's where most people need to go and cleanse themselves of duality. And that's why much of this is like a digital ayahuasca journey, what we're doing here, showing history through triggers that awake people to what the cream of what their history has been about, while not diluting it with the extra mythology and all the extra sauce. But I will say for sure that there's going to be alien worship going on here. I pulled this picture out of one of these documentaries, but it shows the Christ figure bow down, the flying saucer, and then the sheep. And here's another one where, of course, we're live stream now, and I'm pretty sure it should be live right now. That's www.livestream.com/innerstanding. But again, if not, it's definitely recording. We see again the Jesus going into the saucer. So this is where they're going to take it, because they want to make sure that the reality remains external. The job. See? Like, you don't get it. Like, this thing has to be here, and they're responsible for making it as material as possible. But there are different levels to how this exists, just as there's different layers to the atmosphere, etc. And so you get the chance to decide in your spiraling, are you going to be going in one direction, which is losing energy, or are you going to go in the other, which is gaining energy? Or are you going to go beyond and make your fields circumambulate each other? Actually, where the fields are spinning in different directions and generating balanced power. Keep pushing. That's all I'm saying to you. There's a lot to be known here, and majority of it, we're barely scratching the surface. There's more shapes than just the pentagram and the hexagram, but as far as those two are covered. But it gives you a big insight on knowledge, people. Like, if you understand what exactly is being produced by this information. This is funny. I go back to this Apollonia picture. They even have the Vesica mirror in the background. But anyway, that's just crazy. But when you know this knowledge, then it shows you everywhere. It redundifies itself. Like, for instance, the people in Titicaca and the Incas, all these people are really the same people. And their temples were aligned to the Pleiades and to Orion. Now, it's interesting because the Pleiades is called the Seven Sisters. And the Bibliotheca Pleiades website, and those guys, they have a lot of information, so whoever's behind there knows a lot. He said in his statement, in his terms of use, that he feels the reason why they named the site as such is because from all the stuff that he's read and uncovered, he knows that one thing is a fact, that whatever is going to take place here has something to do with the Pleiadian star system. And what I believe this is about is not go worship the Pleiades and water down Ashtar, Sharon, and the rest of those Goombas, but is the Seven Sisters the Seven Wombs? Can we pull ancient names of those seven sisters? Is that somehow related to the seven-pointed star? Like, these are questions that if you're in front of an adept, you should be able to drill right in with those questions and then let them immediately answer like, okay, no, you got it all wrong. This is really how it works. This is the etymology behind the name. This is how, where the beings first sprang forth. This is their color. Here's their biorhythm. Here's their sigil. See, there's knowledge that is finite. It's just as finite as your fingerprint. But they have not been giving out that knowledge. They've been giving out Amharet village people knowledge, which is like, basically, I'm not really paying attention, but I have to do the spiritual thing to please everyone else. Need something so I can carry it around so it makes me look spiritual. Oh, great, a cross. Oh, great, a Bible. Now I'm good. Let me go every Sunday. I can check in and reset my sins, and then basically, I hope I die on Sunday. I tell you, I've already penetrated that psyche because I've already been there, and I went to the highest state in Christianity, which is Gnosticism, which is Holy Ghost and Shekinah. And I'll tell you, what they're teaching people in the church has nothing to do with that. That is otherworldly. But that's where most people stop. Because most people won't even figure out what is the height of whatever religion that they're in. Like, the Muslims need to go be a Sufi. Go figure out what it's like to be a whirling dervish and to have yourself go into Fana. Don't just sit in there and 5 prayers a day. For the Christian, find out what the prophets were really talking about. Find out where their power really came from, the queens and Cassia and Solomon, and figure that out. And then for the Buddhists, figure out, well, who knows the Buddhists are up to. I have been seeing them on the astral plane. It seems like they're benefiting off of the spiritual level of knowledge that's always been passing through their country. So there it is there. So I'm going to go ahead and now use this time, because we went through this whole thing, to take some questions. And let's see. I've been waiting for the Master's Poll since you mentioned it last week. For sure. I'm answering some questions here for sure. The Master's Poll is there for you. And we're going to go ahead and take the caller here from the area code 201 area code. Caller, you're on the Universal Current. I'm just going to need you to turn down your radio, and you can go ahead with your question. For sure. I'm answering some questions here for sure. The Master's Poll is there for you. And we're going to go ahead and take the caller here from the area code 201. I'm going to hold on for a moment because the caller has a slight delay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take another caller until let that caller get his situation together, or her situation together. Take this caller from the 404 area code Atlantis. You're on the air with the Universal Current. How can I assist you?
Good afternoon, Sevan.
Good afternoon.
All right. Just wanted to discuss some things that you talked about earlier, which were quite interesting. One, by the way, my name is Jamar Haynes. We actually spoke quite a few times, email and different things like that. But some of the stuff you discussed as far as people wanting validity, that's very, very true. People always want to have proof for everything that you talk about. And it seems that you pointed out that fact here today, and you've given lots and lots of proof, which is very good. So people need to keep their eyes open for this stuff, as well as some of the information you mentioned about King Solomon and the different religious-based organizations. Very, very interesting. I'm excited to listen to the show, and I hope you have more coming up soon.
Oh, man, I'm excited that you called in, Bar, and I definitely know who you are. And I wanted to thank you for making that extra connection. And yeah, man, there's so much to this. I mean, it's coming out every week when I come out with the knowledge. It's literally to me like I'm like, okay, well, what really taught that? Because I'm in the body, I'm in the mind, and in the soul, so I'm experiencing all this in real time. So sometimes I go, it could even be beyond that. Is this going to be the last show? And then sure enough, it unfolds itself even more. I hear it more with this in the first 2 hours in the morning, like right before I really wake up. But I hear more high knowledge in that field than I have still yet to introduce to this radio show. I mean, because it is so flawless, and I just can only accredit that to being in tune and actually working at this. It's not so much as, like, people know my life and follow my life and see even just the resistance, some of the stuff that we went through and the reason why we don't get asked to come on radio shows, and the reason why really nobody knows about what's going on and what situations make those things occur. It still shows that there's been a true intent to get this level of information, and that's why it's been given. Because I look at stuff that's never been really mentioned anywhere at all, and when I find it out, it doesn't come from a book. But there's enough pieces in my mind to take that symbol and like, okay, now you see this symbol? Now this is found here and here. It's almost like walking a child through consistency. And I believe that that's what our real issue is that we have somewhat of an issue with being consistent, and that doesn't allow us to get to the conclusion of whatever we're doing, whether it's, Christianity, whether it's Saturnalia, whatever it may be. And so when we penetrate the meat of what's visible here on this planet, or the mate, as I call it, that's what allows us to lift the veil of our own immortal being, to switch from being dual or dying into resplendent being. We go to one at that point, and that's where our energy really starts to grow. And so it's just for me, man, it's amazing to be here with everyone, and I'd like to know that it is because of the interaction that people give me every day that the reason why it pushes me to keep going is because, stuff is way beyond the beginning. you listen to a first recording. Like, I never listen to my own recordings. I fly around listening to myself. But I'm sure if I listen to one of those first recordings, I can hear some wild stuff, and I'll be like, man, what is going on?
What was I thinking? Wow, I was getting out there, and that's good. That's awesome. Yeah. And, you know, Sevan, you have such an amazing speaking voice. You got to get out to the masses some kind of way, because at this point, we're kind of limited. And I know the internet is an awesome tool, but there's got to be a way where you can get out and speak amongst thousands and maybe even millions of people and let them see and feel your true energy throughout physically. You know, because that is one thing for me to hear you, because I've spoken to you before. It's one thing for me to hear you over the phone or on the internet, but it'll be another thing for me to actually physically see you do the work and see you there, because you get a better connection. And a lot of people need that connection to almost wake them up, as we say.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, but it's so powerful. Like, I remember one time when the energy really started to build, it seemed like there was a buffer there that literally moved in and said, wait a minute, we can't even bring in that kind of energy. This apartment can't hold that kind of energy. It's like what we're talking about with humanity, and I only see the day where the activated humans really start to gather together and even use silence techniques. Like I saw last week's show, just sitting in the meditation, just there, and, letting people sense what's going on, because they don't know. If you have a sign and you're saying, "I'm here for this, I'm here for this, we want this, we want that," then you're giving them already the input that they need. But if you sit there and you say nothing, that's when you flip the pole, and it requires them to react. And so meditate on Wall Street. They're activating. Let's see what they're really ready to do. But of course, you know, there's a lot more to it. Those are very boisterous and prideful comments. But the reality is that what kind of people are you going into the future with? Have them prepared properly. Exactly. And that's what we would do. I think, you know, I was just thinking about something the other day. It's basically like now that awakening is happening, there's still a huge need for deprogramming.
Wow, you were reading my mind, Sevan.
It's like a necessary thing. It's like, okay, now that you're awakening, you now have to deprogram, because all of what was there that kept you asleep it needs to be worked out. It's not just going to go away. And that's also what the ayahuasca journeys are about. It brings up things from the core, stuff you forgot about as you were a kid. And it'll just show you the visualization right there, like, hey, you didn't deal with that. And so if the plants are willing to help us, then, man, we got to be willing to take it from there, because the plants are strong. We literally have an ally that's saying, look, I'm always here for you. I mean, even some people talk about the marijuana. I mean, there's different strains of marijuana that are on a totally different level, like what they call the granddaddy plant. Yeah. So when you go in and mess with a Monsanto clone, then you can't, you know, that's being handled by a certain individual. The whole part of the planet is that person is handling it is doing something to it. So it's all about still using our chemistry. Now, saying that, because alchemy means white and morphine means black, but to make it neutral, just use the chemistry. Be able to know how to alter the body, and that's really what we're here for. And I believe 100% what we're dealing with, and that's why it becomes difficult to even say that all women are still in the pentagram configuration. That's not, with masses, it's very easy to see where the masses are, but there are other ones of different geometric designs, and that's what I was mentioning in the post, is I was saying that it appears to me that there is certain other, like in certain tenses there was one or two or three taken from a certain seed or a certain star, and it's also harvesting itself here too. And so it's, you know, it's wonderful to watch how this thing is going to unfold. And there's absolutely nothing that we can do to stop it. So it's about getting acclimated to it and going forward with it. And that way we don't get shocked by it. It is definitely electric.
That's right. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I really appreciate you allowing me to speak today, Sevan. And I hope you press on, and I'll be listening to the show. So if I have any other interesting questions to ask, of course, you know, I'm going to dial in if you have the option.
Okay, definitely. I'm going to go ahead and take the next caller. Thank you for calling in, Jamar. The next caller, I'm going to go back to the 201 area code really briefly, since you did call in, to see if you're still there. Caller on the 201. We got about 8 more minutes in the show. Right before you speak, because I see you have your line clear, I just want to let everyone know, realistically, this is it. Like, we just have to keep this going. If this was for me, I could do it on my own. But obviously, it's not for me, because you don't get anywhere doing things for yourself. Consider supporting the resistance. If this is something that changed you, something that you know is really, really here to do what you feel it is here to do, then you have to let that reflect somehow sometimes in a sense where it's only us running this. There's no sponsor, there's no anything going on. So that's all I'm going to really say about that. Instead of putting up a post, just want to let people know that just make it here. Like, the longer that we get an opportunity to work on this, you see every week it's been a consistent back-to-back more and more, but that's been going on for like a year. I've literally watched the resistance produce. It's like Jordan playing himself, but he keeps beating himself. It's almost like every single week I challenge myself to see, well, what do you got after that? And then sure enough, a whole wave of new stuff like, well, now that you have those pieces to work with, here's how you know it's that way. And that's what we want to do for people. We want to, now that we've printed this, we want to show you now why it's that way. And then, because you'll start seeing it everywhere yourself if it's the truth. So I'm going to go ahead and go to that caller, area code 201. Caller, you're on the universal current.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey, Sevan, I just want to say thanks a lot, for all the knowledge you've been expounding. I called earlier just to tell you that the live stream wasn't working, and then my question is when I asked, what can we do for you? Because you've been helping us every week. Obviously, you said, maybe help you out financially with the donation, which I definitely want to be doing. But I just want to tell everybody else I think they should be doing the same if they are getting any info and knowledge that that they're able to use. That's basically it.
Man, sure. I do definitely appreciate that, but let's answer that question, because it's not just finances that the resistance needs. What's been going on is there's really, everything has to be structured a certain kind of way. Like, you have to have financial support. You do have to have someone that can sit and concentrate on this, because we're still talking about something of a very high spiritual nature. So to remain in the field where that knowledge can be extracted and then go into the matrix, and the wild matrix as it is now, it somehow comes into conflict, but that conflict still makes us stronger. So the reality is that I've been a little low on per delegation, just in the reality of all this information coming in and just figuring out how to consistently week by week get it to everyone. But I do have another person coming here in a week. I believe Dave Max is also coming down. And so there's a whole new level of this that we really want to bring. Now the knowledge is a lot more cohesive, and I've personally been thinking about writing the next book, because a lot of this information is spread out over posts, but it's not been compressed in a 1, 2, 3 ABC type of way. And now that can really be done, because there's really no answer that we cannot. It's basically answers everywhere. It's more answers than problems now, from my perspective. So I would just say that the support that people give by being there, and also encouraging other members that just come on board. Like, you got to realize that the resistance is a filter. So it caters to a certain kind of individual that's asking all the right questions and needs answers to those questions and won't stop. Like, I realize that resistance wears down all walls. And if you really understand how gates and how dimensions are set up, you understand there's walls and there's boundaries or laws and rules. But to wear down those, become the sovereign, to pass through it, you just have to be consistent. And so it's important for people to realize that some of the people that just come onto the resistance, it hits them like a hammer, some of the information, because it's all of what they've been thinking, but they've never seen it gone to the next level. So sometimes that's staggering, and they want to know, well, who's really behind this. And it helps a lot when people, encourage the person by posting on their page and letting them know, hey, I'm here. And, we keep a constant thing going on the forum where information is always there. But I would only ask people to start helping individuals that are still stagnant in different parts of their consciousness, because we remove some crazy forum posts, but we don't generally remove posts, and some things that are in there that are like, it gets crazy to even try to comment on it from my perspective. So I'm just saying, if we can incorporate what we do more, and that's really what the best part of what we're doing next is, getting these posts together in HTML format, bulletin board format, getting them into other networks, calling places such as Coast to Coast and different radio shows and asking will they have the individual on to bring forth the knowledge that has been coming forth, and then sending them links to different stuff that we've been producing, because to me, I look at everything. I can see everything, and even more vast with the internet at times. And so I see what's really out there, and I'm not impressed. And it's not for anyone to impress me, but the reality is that it hurts at times to watch the closed door of the real knowledge and the effects of the planet and what's happening when they can't receive that knowledge for whatever reason. And I'm here to tell you that we are here to break down those walls. Even 30 of us organized could break down several walls in the consciousness of individuals that are still blocked because they have yet to receive the message. They are waiting on one to come. Their mind is not structured different than ours in many texts, that sometimes when they believe something, they hold to that belief no matter who told them that. Notice it's a new concept now to, even if great-granddaddy told you, to be like, well, maybe great-granddaddy didn't really know. Like, this is new, and this is what they call the New World thought about. Nothing happens in history like the United States. They can forget about it. But what it did produce is, if you see something extremely negative, know that there's something far more positive behind it. Not just because that the dimension internalized is just a fractal of its truth or anyway, but more from a level that their negativity has to have a positive component to power it. So, because it's an illusion. So, when the positive wakes up to who it really is, for better lack of words, it will ignite all of this hidden potential that is being stored up and concentrated within the air of our entire reality. Meaning that there's so much, the nature, the animals, the trees, these things are ripe for emancipation. But because they follow us, because that was the order that we were built in, for better lack of words, they're waiting on us to jump. Just like in certain texts, we're waiting on the planet to jump. But I come to tell everyone now that it already did. That we are just on the pentagram delay time. And that's what I was explaining in the video. I dream tomorrow. I literally, and you can go into it if you can get lucid enough and you can move things around. And then when you wake up in the morning, it plays out. So this lets you know there's a time delay, there's a dimension in which you can reside on, what I call the keeper, the crown of your head, that you can begin to work the wheels of time within your body. So I wanted to thank everyone for tuning in. We've got about 90 seconds left. I also want to say, if you're tuning in at Esoteric Radio and you have an opportunity to simply press 1 or star when this message is over, it does allow the show to get up. It doesn't care anything about what you're producing. They just care about whether people are pressing 1 or star. So next week, we'll see what happens. We're on level 2 again. Master Close video is up, and of course I have some up with the yoga set up, but I personally wanted to make sure we got through some of the stuff we talked about today. I wanted to let everyone that I deeply care about you. I wanted to thank you, all caller, for calling in, and I just let you know I'm here with you all the way, no matter what. And that's what I say. The beauty of all this is that no matter what happens, we're together. And there's some of us that are more than equipped to deal with whatever happens. Wholeness and balance to everyone.
Thank you, Sevan.
No doubt.